Hi you guys, welcome to my little paintbrush. My name is Miss Cami and I'm excited you're here to paint with me today. We are going to pay tribute to the state that I live in and our freedom with this really fun Utah landscape with fireworks in the sky. So I hope you've come relaxed and ready to have an enjoyable experience. Remember that you can pause this video if I'm going too fast for you. You can also make this your own any way you want to, so you can switch it up, add more, don't do as much as me, whatever you want to do. Just be sure to stay true to who you are and make this painting yours. Okay, let's get started. I've got a 3/4 inch flat brush with me today. This is my favorite for blending in backgrounds. You might want a little bit smaller one if you are a younger artist with a smaller hand. But this 3/4 inch flat's a good starting point, okay? So let's grab this, and I'm just gonna swish it around in some water, loosen up the bristles, and get it nice and wet because my paint needs that water. All right, let's look at our surface. We have some cactus here. We've got our foreground, and then our delicate arch is slightly angled in the background. We're gonna start on our sky, and we're gonna go from our darkest value to our lightest value, okay? And we're gonna kind of brush through the cactus because I've put this on with a lead pencil, so I should be able to see it still as I paint through, and they're going to be black, so it's okay if I cover it. The black will fill it in just fine, okay? If you aren't using our paint kit and this isn't already traced on there for you, you can follow the links below to get a pattern, or you can just freehand it in. Maybe you feel super confident in that and you could do that. That's not a problem at all. Okay, so let's look at our palette. It's pretty basic, very patriotic. I'm going to start up with my blue and just kind of swish that water on my brush around a little bit, okay? A nice load, and I'm going to start to brush horizontally up at the top here, okay? And it's really important that I go horizontal in my stroke, okay? Because I really want to give that idea that this is a horizon. Okay, so we'll just go back and forth like this. Now, if you are like me and you like a nice completed piece, you might want to just go ahead and wrap your edges as you go. If you are painting on a wrapped canvas, I like to do that. I like to just go ahead and wrap my edges. Now, as soon as I get a couple inches down, I'm just going to start to put chunks of white into my brush as I paint downwards, and I'm going to add less blue and more white until I get down here it's almost completely white, okay? So I've got the blue on there, and I'm just going to scoop up little bits of white, and they're just going to come through really gently at first, but as I go down, I will continue to add more white. I'm also keeping my brush nice and hydrated. I need that water, okay? As you can see now, we're starting to offload in more white. We're getting that light blue, and we're also getting streaks. Streaks are starting to happen, which I love. Don't let that scare you. It really makes for a more natural looking sky. I might come up here and do another layer so this is really dark up here. And you might find that you need to do that. When we don't add white to our paint, it tends to need more layers. So if you need to go back and add, that's totally fine. Okay, now I'm just going to focus more in my whites and not add so much blue to my brush anymore, because there's enough blue on there that it's going to pull a light blue. You can see, or maybe you can't, but I can still see my cactus for the most part. You know, if you lose some of it, you can go back in and kind of play with that a little bit, but you know, I have my main lines in there, and that's That's the most that I personally need. Okay, so again, I just keep adding more white to my brush, keeping my brush stroke horizontal, and now I gotta work pretty quickly because now my paint is starting to dry and I won't get a good blend once it's dry. Your acrylics, you've got to blend wet into wet. Okay, so you gotta work kind of quickly. Now I'm just focusing on my whites and I'm gonna wipe out any extra blue because I really want to get lighter down here. So there's still a little bit, I didn't wash my brush, I just wiped it out. So I still have blue on there, so it's going to come off in these little streaks of blue here and there, and that's totally what I want. I don't want it to just be bright white, okay? Notice how I come down and then I go back in to my painting. That really helps. So now we're down here, you can see I'm going right through my arch to just go right through everything. You can even go over the ground if you want to. Not a big deal. And if you get some more chunky pieces of blue here and there, don't worry about that. Don't let that cause you frustration. You know, it just makes it look more natural, so that's totally fine. Okay, so we've got our sky in. It looks beautiful. I'm just gonna tighten my surface a little bit. It started to bubble up a bit with all that paint, so I'm gonna pull it nice and tight. If you're working on a mixed media paper, you might find this happen to you too. It just kind of starts to curl up on you. So just tape it down really good, and you might have to go back and forth to that. So I'm gonna rinse my brush really well and just set that aside. I'm pretty much done with my flat today. For that step is what I needed it for. I'm gonna switch to a filbert. Now, the only difference between a flat and a filbert is the filbert has a little bit more of a rounded edge to its bristles, where a round, you'll get a full point. This isn't pointy, it just curves into that flat top. So this is the brush I'm gonna use now. If you don't have this one, this will work just as well. This is just a smaller flat, and you can see the difference. So just grab a smaller flat or even a round brush if you have it, that's fine too. I'm going to get that brush wet, come into my black paint. Now I'm going to fill everything in. So I'm going to come over to my cactus here. And the reason I don't have to wait for my paint to dry is because this is black, right? So even if your paint is a little sticky, a little wet, you don't have to stress about that because the black will just kind of blend right into it and take care of it that way, okay? So we're just filling in these, and you don't have to be super picky about these. That's a really fun thing about painting cactus, is if you've spent a lot of time in the desert, which I have, they're all just sort of their own little funky self. So you can get kind of crazy. And this particular painting, I did have a bit more fun with the cactus personality. And you can do the same thing. Just kind of go for it, and like I said, add some more little arms if you want to. Add some little additional cactus in general if you want to. You can just do whatever you want. I've got a long one right here. So I'm referencing my original sketch on here. Okay, but obviously as you start to fill things in, they take they take on a life of their own, okay? And that's going to happen, and it's important that you just allow that to happen, and don't feel like, oh, it doesn't look exactly like my reference. Nothing really will, okay? Come into this one. The reason I really like this filbert is I can get those rounded edges, but it also is small enough that I don't have to switch to my detail brush or anything like that, because this brush can, you know, if I move it to the toe, or even if I flatten all my bristles like this, I'm still remaining in control of my paint, and I like that. Okay, just filling it in. Again, had a little bit more, I have another cactus piece that I'm a little bit more structured with my cactus, but this one was just a lot of fun to get crazy with. Just do something a little funkier. And you can always take a step back too and go, oh, you know what? I want to add an arm here, or I want to switch this up there. And you know, you're sitting at your home and you're painting your own piece, and it can be just that. It could be your own piece. Okay, now we're just going to come to the foreground here, and we're just going to fill it in. Again, if you are wrapping the edges of a stretched canvas, go ahead and do that as you go, so you don't have to go back and try and recreate, you know, if you were using specific colors or not. You don't have to go back and try and recreate that. And we're going to go all the way to delicate arch here. And if you've never been to delicate, it's just a phenomenal experience. It really is just beautiful. It's a beautiful hike. It's a beautiful area. Okay, now I'm going to fill this in, and I want to be a bit more steady here because I don't want to lose, obviously, what we're trying to create, right? Trying to create a very iconic structure. So I'm going to kind of just try, this is where I do want to stay true to the lines that I have on my canvas. Try and be a little bit more true to that. And I'm going to stick with my filbert, but you know, I find that newer artists struggle with larger brushes and smaller spaces. So if this is giving you a bit of a panic, don't let it, just switch, okay? So in the original piece that I'm following, we've got 3 just straight up and down cactus here. So I'm going to put those in, and they're just going to be 3 lines, and I'm just going to press in right there, okay? And kind of round the top. Now, again, I've taught this piece many times, and sometimes people don't really like the idea of these right here, and I take no offense to that. If it's not you, don't do it. But I'm going to go ahead and put those in. You know, in the desert, we just have all kinds of things surrounding us and meeting us on every corner, so it's fun to just put those in. Okay, before I wash my brush, I'm going to come and add some gray, sort of just streaky, values into my arch and the area the arch is standing on. I don't want to do it in all of my foreground because the arch is kind of in the background, so we're going to gray it a little bit so it looks like it's further away from us and not as clear. So I'm just going to get some white on my brush and make some gray here. Does not take a lot of black, as you can see. And I'm just going to start to kind of brush in. Okay, and you see how I'm just really rough about it. It's not anything fancy, okay? And I'll do the same thing in the arch. I'll just kind of, now if it's too wet for you, it hasn't dried completely, you might want to let it dry before you do these steps, but mine is dry enough. If it's still a little wet, it's okay because it'll just blend even better for you. So you don't have to worry if you've got a little bit of wet paint happening. But see, just a very rough kind of, I didn't do much here. I just grate it a little bit, but you can still see that you're looking at the arch. And I want to make sure this is in the foreground still. Okay, and then I'm just going to wipe that a little bit, get my black, and this little hill right here is in the front. So I'm going to darken that up so we know where the separation happens. It comes down like that. Okay, so you kind of have that indication of where the arch is sort of pushed back, and then this is in the foreground. Okay, this is looking great. I'm going to rinse my brush out here. Hear me just swishing away. That's really important. And I'm going to switch to a detail brush. I like to use a number 2. It's kind of my size of choice. If you have a smaller one, totally fine. If you have a bigger one, totally fine too. Just remember, detail brushes, like any brush, they operate under pressure. So if we push really hard, any brush can give us a really thick stroke. If we're light, it can give us a little one. So that'll help you as you know the pressure you want to put on your brush. So I'm getting it wet, and I'm adding water to my paint to thin it out. And that is so important. We want that thin consistency. And then we're going to just put some little shrubs. I'm going to start right here and just flick in some little desert shrubbery. And see how I flick to one side and then I flick to the next. Okay. Not anything to be afraid of. Start at the base, you know, or push a little harder and then pull away. We've got one that's kind of peeking out from behind this cactus here, so we'll do a little right there. And then we'll put one that's in this dip right here. Okay, and you can just fill it in a little more. Go as high as you want with your strokes, but start little and then you can add. Okay, and just some little desert shrubs. I love it. Okay, I'm gonna wash that out really good because we're gonna use white next. So I'm gonna load my detail with some white paint. And what I want to do with this is just lighten up the top of my cactus. They're just sort of having a little bit of that sun, or not sun, but glow happening on top of them from the fireworks in the sky that are casting some fun light. And it'll just brighten up your painting a little bit, which is fun. Okay, so really, really simple. Again, if your cactus are really wet right now, just give them a minute to dry before you do this step. Don't try and do it while everything's wet, because you really want the highlights here to show up. Little bits of light. And you can get really fancy with this and do, you know, much more detail lines in your cactus, but you know, you can also keep it simple because again, it is your painting. I'm I'm going to put a little bit in my little desert shrubs. Same thing, you just kind of waken everything up a little bit and saying, hey, come to our party, wake up. Do a few in here. And then we can really separate that little hillside there. We're also going to do the same thing over here because there'll be some light in here as well, and so you can kind of give your arch some light too. So just like that, our desert landscape is complete. So all we have to do now is put in our awesome fireworks, and I'm excited about this step. Let's go ahead and rinse that out. We're going to be using that detail quite a bit. The first thing I want to do is grab my big flat again, just for the bottom, okay? And I'm going to use the bottom like a stamp, and this is really going to place for me where my fireworks are going to be. So I'm going to have one right here. So I'm just going to swirl a dot in, okay? I'm going to have another one that's further down here. It's going to begin right about here. Another swirl. And then this is the lowest one that I have. It's going to be more in this area. Now it's okay if your fireworks touch or if they go off the canvas a little bit. And it's totally okay if you want to put more in. But that's what I'm whoa, almost lost my water. That's what I'm going to do, okay? So let's go ahead and start with our tallest or highest in the sky firework. This one's going to be a light blue firework, and I want to make sure that the blue that I have is standing out in the darkest portion of my painting, and also in the lightest. So I'm trying to find that color that's going to do that for me. I don't want it to be super light. I don't want it to be super dark, okay? And that's about the color I want to go for right there. Loosen it up with some water, okay? And now we're going to just kind of do a bloom effect, okay? And what you're going to do is you're going to brush. You're not going to butt right up to this. You're going to come away a little bit, and you're going to brush to the right, bending to the right. And then as you get to the top, you're going to kind of go straight a little bit, and then you're going to bend to the left all the way down and then straighten it out a little bit again. Okay, so let's just start. See how I'm bending? And I'm not trying to fill my firework out completely yet. I'm just getting the main. You can see how I switch to go the other direction now. And then I go up, and then I start to switch over. Okay, so you can see sort of the directionality of my brush strokes, and then I can come through and I can fill it in even more. And it's okay that we're losing some of the blue as it comes into the lighter blue color there. That's okay, because we're going to add some white to our firework, okay? And so we're going to lighten it up a little bit. And these are kind of tricky to do when you're not moving your canvas like me. So if you need to move your canvas around in order to get these in place, totally do that. I'm kind of stuck, you guys, with this recording. I'm kind of stuck in place, but you're not. You can adjust and go in a different, you can flip your canvas around, okay? So we've got this nice firework happening. I'm gonna rinse the blue out and load with some white, and then put little bits of white in there. You can see that kind of brightens up And it's okay if your firework is still a little bit wet, your blue. You can just kind of blend these white strokes right into it. How fun are these to paint? So fun, I love it so much. Okay, so I'm going to pull some down just to indicate that yes, the firework is in this blue area too. All right, now we're going to do some red ones, but now you kind of understand the direction of your brush stroke, okay? So the last two we're doing are red. I'm going to loosen up my red paint with some water here. Make sure that it's nice and thin. That's going to help me get a nice brush stroke on my surface. Okay, and let's just do the same thing again. So you can even start with the top one straight like that, and then once you understand what you're doing here, it goes in pretty quick because you're not having to think so much. Just think of what that firework is going to do as it bursts in the sky. It's going to all fall, right? All those sparkles start to fall down. And that's what we're doing here. We're creating that bend that's happening. So freaking fun to do these. I hope that you understand this brush stroke, and I hope you're enjoying putting these in because they really are pretty stress-free and you can build on them without feeling like you're messing up. Now we're going to add white to that one too, but before I do it, since I'm using red for both fireworks, I'm going to come in and do this one as well. And just fill in this space. And they're just opening up here, creating this beautiful patriotic landscape here. Some strokes are going to be a little bit thicker, a little bit more prominent than others. Don't let those kinds of things stop you in your tracks and go, oh my gosh, this looks terrible. Like, don't judge your painting quite yet. We have other steps to do. Okay, now I'm going to rinse that, and I'm going to add my white just like I did in my blue. Okay, so I'm going to get my brush into my white paint and just add little strokes of white in there. Now if your red is a little too wet, what you're going to get is pink. So if you don't really want a pink firework, make sure your red is completely dry, otherwise you're going to streak in some pink. Okay, I'm going to come over here and add bits of white to this one. You don't want to have completely white out situation with your firework. You don't want to take away from your patriotic colors, but the white really opens that up and showcases it really well. Okay, these look very good. I'm going to rinse really good with that brush. And now I'm going to add some fun dots, just because you know that firework goes off and then you have those little bits that start to fall from the sky. And we're going to have fun with those little bits. First, I'm going to dip in white though, and I'm going to come to the inside and dot around just some little sparkly dots within my circle. Okay, you can do as many or as few as you want of these. We're going to add some red ones too though, so don't completely take up all the space. Leave some space for our little red dots, okay? But as soon as we have that, now we're going to go along the outer edge of our firework, and we're going to create those drippy, sparkly pieces I was telling you about. And this is just the bottom of our brush. Now we're going to be adding some blue to this step as well. So the red will go inside the firework and the blue will surround the firework. So leave a little bit of space for that. We're just going to follow our fireworks here and fill in these colors, these dots here. Come down here. So we're just kind of following that circular shape that our firework made, okay? And these are just a fun, playful way to show sparkle and light and all that good stuff. So I'm just gonna dot. And this might be, you know, for some of you, this might be one of those steps like I was talking about that you're, you know, I'm not as into that concept or that idea, and you wanna do something else, you wanna do something different. Ooh. You can, you know, you don't have to have a painting that looks exactly like mine and the same style as mine. Totally nothing wrong with doing your own thing. These just take a minute to get in, but try not to think too much about what you're doing and just have a good time with it. And just remember you're going in that circle around your firework. These two kind of make contact, so we'll put a few in there, just like that. Super fun. Step back every once in a while, fill in the space that looks a little more empty. And then we're also, while we've got white on this brush, we're just going to put some stars in the sky. Okay. A few stars out over the desert. I love a starry desert night. It's just beautiful. You can come down in and go between your little arms of your cactus here. Okay, let's get your stars in. You can do a couple underneath here like that. Perfect. Okay, we're going to wipe the bottom of our brush and switch to red now. Remember I said we're just going to do red sort of inside of our firework. We'll do a few red dots, spice it up inside there a little bit. Even this blue one, we're going to put red because that's kind of that unexpected pop of color, and I like to do that where it's unexpected. Okay, now I'm going to wipe that off really good because I don't want to make purple. And then I'm going to take that blue firework color, and around my fireworks I'm just going to put just a few of the blue dots. I'm not going to do as many as I did with the white, but I'm just going to have a little playful moment with adding the blue as well in there. It just kind of ties all of these patriotic colors together and gives us a really fun, playful piece. And I like that about these fireworks. They're not, you know, your typical firework painting you might expect, but super fun and unique in their own way. You guys, that is it. That is your desert scene fireworks. I mean, it's just so fun. I hope you enjoyed it. It's super relaxing. It's not a stressful piece to create. I'm going to go ahead and sign my name, as you should, and I would encourage you to sign it. That indicates to the world that you're proud of yourself and you own your piece. Thank you so much for painting with me. I would love to see how your desert fireworks scene turned out. Send us your pictures, tag us on social media at My Little Paintbrush. And if you enjoyed this painting and painting with me, give us a thumbs up below and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any new content. Thanks, guys. See you soon.